The chrome sign was blocking the ramp before Camille Rhodes reached the door. It stood at the bottom of the side entrance, polished and heavy, with black letters printed across the front. Wealth has an address. The sign had been placed there before sunrise by someone from lobby presentation. Someone had centered it carefully. Someone had wiped fingerprints from the metal. Someone had made sure the words faced the street. No one had asked what it blocked. Camille stopped her wheelchair at the edge of the ramp and looked at it for a moment. Behind the glass, Northlake Advisory Group was already awake. A man in a camel coat moved through the revolving doors without slowing down. The receptionist smiled before he reached the desk. A young associate stepped forward to take his briefcase. Near the espresso bar, a woman in a navy suit was handed a paper cup with her name written neatly across the sleeve. The lobby knew how to welcome people. Camille put both gloved hands on the wheel rims and leaned forward. The wind from the lake pressed against the back of her gray blazer. The blazer was old, soft at the elbows, plain enough to be ignored by people who trusted fabric before faces. She pushed the chrome sign sideways inch by inch. Metal scraped against concrete. No one inside turned. By the time she cleared enough space to pass, her shoulders burned. One wheel rolled through melted snow near the curb. The tire left a thin, wet line behind her as she entered the lobby. That was the first thing Denise Carver noticed. Not Camille's face. Not the leather folder resting across her lap. The wheel marks. Denise stood behind the front desk, arranging white orchids beside her monitor. She had been with Northlake for 11 years. She knew the partners by voice. She knew which clients wanted still water and which wanted sparkling. She knew how to make the lobby feel expensive before anyone saw a balance sheet. She also knew how to make a person feel like a mistake. Camille rolled toward the desk. The counter rose too high. From where she sat, Denise's hands were visible before her face. A gold name bar caught the chandelier light. Denise Carver. 2 words Camille filed away without expression. "Good morning," Camille said. "Camille Rhodes. I have a 9:30 meeting on the 30th floor." Denise looked down at her, then at the wet wheels, then at the folder. Her smile did not arrive. "The community assistance office is farther down, Whacker," Denise said. "They open later." Camille held her gaze. "I'm here for Northlake." "For Northlake." "Yes." Denise gave a small laugh through her nose, just enough for the espresso bar to hear. "The executive floors are restricted." "I understand. My name should be on the visitor list." Denise did not touch the keyboard. Camille waited. Behind her, the revolving doors turned again. A silver-haired client entered with a scarf folded over one arm. Denise's face changed instantly. "Good morning, Mr. Lowell," she said over Camille's shoulder. "They're expecting you upstairs." The man nodded and passed around Camille's chair without looking at her. Denise's smile left with him. Camille reached into the folder and removed a cream visitor card. Northlake letterhead. Meeting time. Executive floor. Chairman's office. She lifted it toward the counter. Because the counter was too high, she had to stretch. Denise took the card with 2 fingers. She did not read it. She turned it over and placed it face down beside the orchids. "Printed cards are not clearance," Denise said. "Then check the list. I don't verify walk-ins who cannot state a business purpose." "I stated it." "You stated a floor." Camille's voice stayed level. "Call Thomas Ralston's office." That name changed the air by a fraction. Denise heard it. So did Kira Boone at the espresso bar. Kira paused with a towel in one hand, eyes moving from Camille to the card lying face down. Denise leaned slightly forward. "Mr. Ralston is not disturbed for lobby confusion." "This is not confusion." "No," Denise said softly. "It is becoming a disruption." She opened a lobby note on her screen. Camille could not see the fields from below the counter, but Kira could see the reflection in the dark espresso machine. Unscheduled access issue. Refusing to leave. No search had been made. No call had been placed. No name had been typed. Camille looked at the ceiling camera above the desk. Its red light blinked steadily. Then she looked back at Denise. "I want your full name for the record." Denise touched the gold name bar with one manicured finger. "You already have it." "Yes," Camille said. "I do." Denise picked up the desk phone. "Security to front reception," she said. "We have a visitor refusing direction." Kira set down the towel. Under the espresso counter, she took out her phone and sent one message to Brianna Moss upstairs. A black woman in a wheelchair, Says she has a board meeting. Front desk has not checked her name. Then Kira looked at the chrome sign outside, still angled beside the ramp. It had finally been moved. But only because Camille had moved it herself. Jonah Pierce arrived from the east hallway, with his radio clipped high on his shoulder. He was not walking fast. People walked fast when they expected danger. Jonah walked like a man answering a routine complaint about a delivery cart or a client blocking the elevator bank. Then he saw Camille. Her hands rested on her wheels. Her folder sat closed across her lap. The cream visitor card remained face down beside Denise's orchids. Jonah slowed. Denise came around the desk before he could ask a question. "This woman has been refusing to leave," she said. "She claims she has executive access, but she has no verified appointment, and she is disrupting the lobby flow." Camille looked at Jonah. "I asked her to check the visitor list." Jonah glanced at the monitor. Denise stepped slightly in front of it. "She gave me a printed card." "The card is on the counter," Camille said. Jonah reached for it. Denise picked it up first. "That won't be necessary." For the first time, Jonah looked directly at Denise. "It might be." The lobby changed by a small degree. Not enough for anyone to move. Enough for people to notice. Denise's smile sharpened. "Jonah, we do not call upstairs every time someone comes in with a story. It's one search," he said. "And if the chairman's office asks why we interrupted a board morning because someone rolled in from the street?" The sentence was wrapped in procedure. The insult was not. Camille heard both. Kira Boone heard both from the espresso bar. Her phone was still under the counter. No reply yet from Brianna Moss upstairs. She filled a glass with ice water and walked toward Camille. Denise turned. "Keita." The barista stopped. "She has been outside in the cold," Kira said. "She has not been cleared for service." "It's water." "It is insubordination if I have to repeat myself." Kira's jaw tightened. She knew exactly what Denise meant. There were already write-ups in her file. Small ones. Late towel count. Improper bar restock. Speaking to visitors before front desk clearance. Every one of them had come after Kira helped someone Denise wanted ignored. Camille looked at her. "It's all right," Camille said. "Keep your job." That made Kira's face change. Not because Camille dismissed her. Because Camille understood the cost. Jonah reached again for the visitor card. Denise moved faster. She snatched the leather folder from Camille's lap. Camille's hands closed on empty air. "Give that back." Her voice did not rise. It dropped. Denise held the folder above the counter. "If we're verifying, then let's verify." The clasp opened. Papers slid out. They hit the marble in soft, expensive sounds. One page skidded beneath the leather sofa. Another stopped near Jonah's boot. A third landed face up beside the wet wheel track. North Lake Advisory Group. Share transfer packet. Confidential. No one read it. A young associate by the elevators glanced down, then looked away as if the paper had embarrassed him. Kira moved first. She crossed the lobby and knelt. Denise's voice cut across the marble. "Touch one page and you are off schedule permanently." Kira froze with her hand inches from the floor. Camille turned her chair slowly, reaching for the closest sheet. The counter, the chair, the angle of the floor, all of it made the simple act difficult. Her shoulder pulled tight as she leaned. Jonah bent down and picked up the page near his boot. Denise stared at him. He handed it to Camille. "Thank you," Camille said. Jonah did not answer. His face had gone still. On the 30th floor, Brianna Moss looked down at Kira's message between calendar alerts. A black woman in a wheelchair says she has a board meeting. Front desk has not checked her name. Brianna frowned and opened the visitor schedule. Rhodes, Camille, 9:30, chairman's office. Then she opened the board packet. Her breath stopped. Rhodes Meridian Fund. Controlling interest. 51%. She stood so quickly her chair rolled back into the credenza. In the lobby, Denise had picked up the desk phone again. "Formal removal," she said to Jonah. "Now." Camille placed the recovered pages back into her folder one at a time. "I am not leaving until my appointment is verified." Denise pointed toward the doors. "You are blocking a client lobby. I am using it. You are creating a scene. You created the note before checking my name." Jonah looked at the monitor. The lobby note was still open. Unscheduled access issue. Refusing to leave. Visitor name. Blank. His hand moved to the push handle of Camille's chair. Camille did not turn around. "Do not touch my chair." Jonah stopped for half a second. Then Denise said his name, quietly, like a warning. His fingers closed around the handle. The elevator chimed. A man stepped out before the doors had fully opened. Andrew Keats, Northlake's chief operating officer, was running across the marble with his tie loose and a board packet in his hand. His first words were not to Denise. They were not to Camille. They were to Jonah. "Take your hands off her chair." Jonah's hands came off the chair. He stepped back, as if the push handles had burned him. Andrew Keats crossed the last stretch of marble with the board packet still open in his hand. His breathing was uneven. His face was pale, but his voice held. "Ms. Rhodes," he said. The lobby heard the name differently this time, not as a claim from the woman at the desk, as a fact from the man running the company. Andrew lowered himself slightly, not touching her chair, not crowding her space. "I am sorry. We verified your appointment upstairs. You were expected." Denise's face tightened. "Mr. Keats." She never explained. Andrew turned. She gave her name. Denise stopped. She gave her meeting time. A pause. She gave the chairman's office. The cream visitor card still lay face down beside the orchids. Andrew picked it up and turned it over. Camille Rhodes, 930, 30th floor, chairman's office. He placed it face up on the counter. Then he looked at Denise. "You didn't read it?" Denise's mouth opened. No answer came. Brianna Moss appeared from the executive elevator a moment later, tablet in hand. She did not look at the people filming. She did not look at the spilled pages. She went straight to Andrew and handed him the screen. Visitor schedule, board agenda, share registry, Rhodes Meridian Fund, controlling interest, 51%. Andrew closed his eyes once. Then he faced the lobby. "This is Camille Rhodes," he said, "founder of Rhodes Meridian Fund. As of last Tuesday, controlling shareholder of Northlake Advisory Group." The waterfall behind the desk suddenly sounded too loud. The associates by the elevators looked at the floor. The client who had walked around Camille's chair stepped backward, as if distance could revise memory. Denise gripped the counter. "I didn't know." Camille looked at her. "No," she said. "You didn't check." That was all. No speech. No raised voice. Only the difference between ignorance and refusal. Andrew turned to Jonah. "Did Ms. Rhodes threaten anyone?" "No, sir." "Did she raise her voice?" "No." "Did you have a documented safety basis to touch her chair?" Jonah swallowed. "No, sir." Camille gathered the last page into her folder. Kira Boone stepped forward with a glass of water still in her hand. This time, Denise said nothing. Camille accepted it. "Thank you, Kira." Kira nodded once. Her eyes were wet, but she kept her chin steady. Andrew looked at the lobby camera above the desk. Preserve every angle. Ramp camera, front desk camera, elevator bank, audio channel, and the lobby note history. Brianna was already typing. Then Andrew looked at Denise. "You will wait in conference room 2 until human resources arrives." Denise tried to straighten. "I was following lobby protocol." Andrew picked up the chrome sign that had been blocking the ramp outside. Facilities had pulled it in after the commotion and left it leaning near the desk. He turned the polished metal so everyone could read the words. "Wealth has an address." "Then protocol is part of the problem." He set the sign against the counter. "Nadine Shaw is on her way down. Until the review is complete, you are relieved from front desk authority." Denise blinked. "I'm sorry?" Andrew nodded to Brianna. "Lock her reception credentials." Brianna typed on the tablet. Behind the desk, Denise's monitor refreshed. Denise Carver. Lobby access suspended. Visitor system access suspended. Security escalation privileges suspended. The badge reader beside the staff door flashed red when Denise tried to open it. One flat beep. That was all. The same door she had controlled all morning no longer recognized her. The board meeting began 6 minutes late. Camille rolled into the boardroom with the same folder on her lap. Some pages had bent corners now. One had a faint mark from the marble floor. Thomas Ralston stood first. The rest of the board followed. Camille did not thank them for standing. She moved to the head of the table and set the folder down. "Item 0, she said. The lobby. No one objected. Brianna put the camera timeline on the screen. The board watched the sign blocking the ramp. They watched Camille move it herself. They watched Denise place the visitor card face down. They watched the folder open and the papers fall. They watched Kira kneel, then freeze. They watched Jonah's hand close on the chair. Then they watched Andrew enter the lobby with the share registry in his hand. When the screen went dark, no one asked what Camille wanted emotionally. The record had already answered what the company had done operationally. Thomas Ralston folded his hands on the table. "I sold you control of a firm," he said. "I did not understand that I was also handing you a lobby that had been trained to turn people away." Camille looked at him. "You handed me both." Thomas nodded once. "Then both transfer today." His final motion as chairman moved operational control to Camille immediately, instead of waiting for the scheduled transition. The vote was unanimous. Nadine Shaw from Human Resources opened the formal review that morning. Denise was not allowed to resign before the finding entered. Her final record did not say service separation. It did not say misunderstanding. It said discriminatory visitor handling, refusal to verify authorized access, misuse of security escalation, improper handling of confidential documents, false lobby documentation, and accessibility-related misconduct. Her access to the visitor system was revoked before she left the building. Jonah received a written warning and was removed from solo lobby response until retraining was complete. His statement was also entered into the file because he told the truth. Kira's past write-ups were reviewed. 14 were reversed. Each had followed a moment when she helped someone Denise had frozen out. Kira was protected from retaliation and moved into a new front-of-house experience role, with authority to stop any lobby interaction that crossed into humiliation. The review did not end with Denise. 3 buried complaints were reopened. A candidate with a service dog who had been turned away received a corrected interview record. A retired client, who had once been sent to the service entrance, received a written apology. A delivery contractor with a speech impediment had a false conduct note removed from the vendor file. Northlake issued the first access standard before the week ended. No sign, plant, rope, display, or promotional object could block an accessible route. Every visitor card had to be read or scanned before security was called. Every desk had to include a working, low-access section. No employee could touch a wheelchair, cane, walker, or service device without consent or a documented emergency. No lobby note could say refusing to leave until verification had been attempted and logged. All disability access complaints would route directly to compliance. The chrome sign never returned to the sidewalk. Facilities sent it to storage first. Camille sent it back with a note. "Scrap it. Use the space for salt." 6 months later, snow came off the lake again. The ramp outside Northlake was clear and heated. The new front desk curved low on one side, so a seated visitor and a standing receptionist could meet each other's eyes. A woman with a cane entered slowly, coat wet at the shoulders. "I have a small pension appointment," she said. "Very small." The receptionist smiled and typed her name first. "You're on the list," she said. "Come get warm." 30 floors above, Camille Rhodes saw the lobby feed in the corner of her monitor. On the shelf behind her desk sat 2 things: a photograph of a glass of ice water and the cream visitor card from that morning, mounted face up. Not because the card gave her permission to enter, because someone had finally learned to read it. This story is fictional.